Hi, it's Elaine with MCPS Technology. Today we're diving into Google Forms, a tool I know you're going to love. So we're going to our Google Drive. I always like to start there, although there are certainly other places that you can start your form. We're going to the big New button. We're going to click on More and then Google Forms. Right away, an untitled form will come up, and you know what to do to title it. You click in the upper left corner, and it might take just a second with my slow internet connection. There we go. I'm just going to call this test one. Now, this isn't really a test, but we're testing our form's ability in a way. So, okay, we'll call it test one. Now, in this tutorial, we're mainly going to focus on the questions inside forms. Notice when you're in the edit mode, there are two main areas. We have questions and we have responses. We're going to devote, well, Google Forms is not difficult, but it's intricate. And because it has lots of pieces and parts, we're going to devote more than one tutorial to this form. So before we get started writing questions, let's just check out all the things that we might need to know, that we might need to decide before we really get started. And let's just very quickly look at this area over here with the three dots. So three dots in Google always means more, right? And I just want you to see all the things that are available to you here. So typically, we don't share forms in the traditional way because we're not usually asking folks to help us write the form. We're asking them to fill out the form. However, it's not unheard of for you to ask someone to collaborate with you. So that is an option, and this is the place where you would do that. There's some other things you can do here, like make a copy and that sort of thing. So you can check that out for yourself. And now let's go to settings. There's some important decisions we need to make before we even write question one. When you go to settings, you'll notice there's three areas: general, presentation, and quizzes. Quizzes we're saving for its own tutorial because that's where you would go if you wanted to create a form like a quiz that would grade itself. So we're going to learn about that in a later tutorial. So let's look under general. First of all, I can collect email addresses, and this is really a good idea. Certainly if you're building a quiz or something that's like an assignment for your students, because otherwise you won't know who turned in what. Now, I may not want to collect email addresses if I'm sending out some kind of random survey that should be anonymous. So just keep that in mind. I can also restrict this to my domain, and as you can see, that is checked by default. Now, some cases I might want to uncheck that. For example, if I were doing a survey for parents or people who are not in my domain. So again, these are decisions to be made based on what kind of form that you're building. So there's also some other decisions you can make, and you can read those for yourself. Going on to presentation, I can also show a progress bar. If I have a really long form, you've probably filled some of those out when you're thinking, is this ever going to be over? And at least the progress bar shows you the progress you've made. You can also shuffle your question order. You can show a link to submit another response, which I typically don't do. One place where you can personalize your form is in the confirmation message, and that's what the respondent sees after he clicks submit. So I might write something like thanks, or um, you rock, or just whatever. And again, it depends on what kind of form you're making. And so then once I have made those decisions, I can just click save. The other thing that people want to know always is, how do I make my form look cool? And so the easiest way to do that is to go to this color palette right here. By default, the form will come in with a color. If you don't like that color, you can simply choose another. But my favorite thing is to go to this picture icon where you can find all sorts of themes that are available in forms. I'll just choose the beakers. And notice how that really gives your form some life. Let's look at questions. Notice by default, an untitled question comes in and it's a multiple choice question. If I don't want my first question to be multiple choice, let's say I want a short answer question, then I can go to this down arrow and choose short answer. And of course, I would choose that in a question that requires a really brief response, like, what is your favorite color? If I were going to need a longer answer, then I might choose something like paragraph rather than short answer. Let me bring your attention to this menu here where I'm about to add a new question. I can add a new question by clicking the plus sign, but I can do some other things here as well. Like other Google Docs, you can add pictures, videos, and titles and descriptions. And you can also add sections to a form if it's like if you're making a form that's really long, sometimes it can be helpful to have sections. Let's add a new question. So I'm clicking on the plus sign and again comes in as multiple choice. But multiple choice is so easy. I don't even need to show you that type. You can figure that one out for yourself. But let's look at some question types that could be a little confusing. For example, let's choose linear scale. This is a type of question you would use when the answer is going to be in a range of responses. For example, up here on the question line, I might write, rate your job satisfaction. And so in the scale, I can rate, the respondent can rate from 1 to 10. So on the labels, 1 might equal low job satisfaction and 10 might equal high. Anytime you want to know what your question looks like to the end user, you can click on this preview button. So I'll show you what that looks like. It comes out looking kind of neat. So I can click anywhere on this grid, or excuse me, on this linear scale to rate my job satisfaction. Now I can go back into edit very easily by just clicking on the icon in the top right. So let's add another question. And if a question comes in and I decide I want that question to be at the bottom, I can simply hold my mouse down and move the question wherever I want. Another question type I'd like to look at with you is called multiple choice grid. That one can be a little tricky when you're setting it up. So let's practice that one. So a multiple choice grid would be used traditionally in what we might call a Likert scale type question, where you had things like agree, disagree, strongly disagree, and that sort of thing. So here I might write, please respond to the following statements. Now the columns are the labels that go across the top, the things that I agree or disagree. So I might, in the columns, I might write agree and then strongly agree, disagree, and then perhaps strongly disagree. Under rows is where the actual statements go that I'm agreeing or disagreeing with. For example, I might write Google rocks. Who in the world would disagree with that? Or like educators should get paid more. Who would disagree with that? And to see what that looks like, go back to preview. And see, it comes out looking really neat. I can click here to disagree, or excuse me, agree, disagree. And so this looks really professional, yet so easy to do. Going back into edit mode. So when I'm finished, okay, I would advise you to check out all the question types, and that'll be part of your assignment. But when you're ready to send your form, it's a little bit different than other Google Docs. So let's look at that. So I go up to the button that says send, and notice I have lots of choices here. I can email this form, which is by far the easiest, but look at this. I can also send this form via a link. I can shorten this very long link, and I can click here to copy it, or I could use Control C, and I can simply paste that into an email. I could also embed this link. If I work with HTML coding, I could embed it in a website, and I could also share it via several social media outlets. But let's cancel that. And oops, I didn't mean to go all the way out. Going back to email, which is by far the easiest. So I'm just going to send this to myself. Here I would put the subject. I don't know, form. I'm just going to put form. Under the message, I would explain why I want them to fill it out. Now, this is important. I don't want to check the box to include the form in the email in most cases, especially if I've built a really nice theme. It will not be, the respondent won't enjoy the theme. They won't be able to see the theme if I check that box. So I would advise you, in most cases, not to check the box to include the form in the email. When I'm ready to send, I just click send, and that's all there is to it. That's the basics of building a Google form. I send you off now to build your own form. I know you're going to have fun.